Warframe is a game that has been around for a very long time and over the years has accumulated quite a few Warframes, giving you a mountain of choices on how to play. The problem is there's always new players jumping in and in a lot of cases getting overwhelmed with the many choices and decisions that have to be made on how to play the game. So in this video, I'm going to be simplifying some of those choices by giving you 5 frames every new or returning player should have. This will make it easier for players who just want a little bit of direction or want to refine their list of frames to frames that are useful without having to take up too many slots. I'm going to show you how they work, give you examples of use cases, and most importantly, show you where to farm them. Just remember, if this video helped you out, don't forget to like as well as subscribe for more Warframe content. With that in mind, let's dive into the first frame. The first frame we're going to be covering is Volt, and Volt is one of the starter frames you can pick the moment you start playing Warframe. Now, not to influence your decision, as Mag and Excalibur brings quite a bit to the table, but if I had to pick one of them, it's always going to be Volt, and that's for a few reasons, with the main being speed and versatility. With his speed skill, Volt gives himself and allies the ability to move faster, attack faster, reload quickly, and enhance almost every speed related aspect. His electric shield can be used as a tool to protect you, your allies, or even defense targets while being able to be picked up and arguably most importantly, give you extra damage as you shoot through it. And with his ultimate ability Discharge, Volt has the ability to crowd control enemies with large AoE electric charges. This of course depends on how you build him, offering some CC to his already amazing kit. On top of being extremely versatile, Volt can complete quite a few in-game game modes and is very key to a few of them. For example, if you want to play with friends who are leveling up or just want to focus on farming focus, jumping into Sanctuary Onslaught is pretty great with Volt when spec'd into Discharge properly. On top of this, when it comes to Eidolon farming, Volt is one of the 4 core frames that are usually required when you're doing this kind of mission, as his kit fares extremely well versus the Eidolons. And without getting too in depth with shield mechanics, if you're into pushing super in-game and because shield gating is so strong, with Volt having access to capacitance, he can pretty much stay alive and contend with the best of them. Now you get all this versatility all built into a starter frame. Now if you haven't started with Volt, don't worry because there's a way to get him very easy. You simply go to your clan dojo, go into the Tenno lab from the fast travel menus, and you can simply buy his parts and start crafting him right now. Volt is a legendary frame and it's no wonder he's my most played Warframe, and honestly you should definitely have him a part of your kit. While speed is important, inherently Warframe is a farming game and having the ability to maximize your looting is important, and so that's where Necros come into play. Unfortunately, to get him is extremely easy. First off, you need to buy his blueprint from the market for 100,000 credits. From there, you need to go to demos, and on Magna Cadium, you need to do the assassination mission facing off against Lephantis. Before making this video, it took me about 5 runs to get all the pieces needed to get him, so it was a fairly easy and fast farm. All it required was a fairly okay slashing weapon, and it was pretty easy to beat him. Now let's go over his kit because it's pretty important to why I love Necros. First off, he has Desecrate. This ability gives you an extra loot chance. This doesn't increase the drop chance, but gives you an extra ability to re-roll the loot table for a chance at getting additional drops. So in theory, you could get double the drops for simply having Necros on the field, and that's a pretty amazing ability if you ask me. While he is an amazing farming frame, he actually is pretty tanky and can provide some damage benefits. With Terrify, Necros can fear enemies and make them run away in terror. Also, he can strip armor with this ability, giving him pretty solid use while clearing in-game content since you want him for the extra loot anyway. The Shield of Shadow mod augments his Shadow of the Dead to give him some extra layer of defense beyond armor and shield, making him one of the few frames with a 3rd layer of defense. Because of his farming capabilities, solid defense, and pretty decent utility, regardless of how you play Warframe, Necros is pretty core to have as a frame on your roster. Now don't worry, I didn't forget about my support players, and that's where Wisp comes into play. While at base, Wisp is an amazing support frame, but you can actually build them to do billions of damage, and yes, I mean billions of damage. That's not necessarily what this video is about, but just in case my support players are concerned, you actually can get a decent DPS frame out of this. Anyway, let's talk about farming this frame, and just like Necros, you basically need to complete a few assassination missions to get Wisp. Simply head over to Jupiter and face off against the Ropola list. This one took a bit longer than Necros, but less than 10 runs and I pretty much had Wisp. A fairly fast farm, but the Ropolis can be a little bit tough, so just be mindful of that. So I bet you're wondering what makes Wisp such a great support frame, and that's a pretty easy one. While the rest of her kit is really damn good, one great thing about her is one skill stands out, and that is Reservoir. You can choose to pick if you want to give allies increased move speed and attack speed, making sure to provide decent damage utility, or if you're in a mission that is dishing out a ton of damage or you need some support, swapping over to the Vitality mode will increase maximum health and heal over time. Pretty nice, right? But believe it or not, that's not all you can do with this skill, and you can use shock mode to stun nearby enemies, and if you mount this correctly, you can perma CC enemies, and you can even do this to the toughest of enemies. Wisp has 3 other pretty good abilities, but the fact that Wisp has all of these benefits built in one skill really makes Wisp the ultimate support frame that you should have once again as a part of your roster. Speaking of being a part of your roster, if you made it this far, consider subscribing to the channel. We have a lot of Warframe and many other looter shooters coming up, and I hate for you guys to miss out. If you're anything like me, you love stealth based gameplay, and since Warframe actually have a few stealth focused missions, it's important to have a stealth based frame. Now there's quite a few Warframes that can fill this role, and typically I would recommend Octavia, as she is, in my opinion, the best late game scaling stealth frame, but seeing that she can be a bit of a pain to get and to be quite frank boring, I'm going to give you the next best thing, and the next best thing is Loki. Loki has 2 standout abilities that you need in order to be effective in the endgame. First, invisibility. There's not much to say about this besides it makes you invisible, and no matter what you do, as long as the ability is active, you can attack safely. It's what you expect from an ability called invisibility, and it's really nice. The second ability is radial disarm, which disarms opponents to make them use their melee weapons. This of course makes it easier for you because basically you'll never get in range to be attacked, and to be quite frank, Loki is quite squishy, so you kind of want them to not really shoot at him. Like most stealth-based gameplay, especially in Warframe, it's not really going to be that exciting. You're basically walking around invisible and things can attack you. It gets the job done, and that's what's important. Now, to pick up Loki, you simply need to buy his blueprint from the shop for 35,000 credits, then head on over to Neptune and on Semithy face off against the Hyena pack. Again, a pretty easy assassination target that shouldn't take you more than 10 pulls to clear. Let me be clear, Loki isn't the best in slot stealth frame, that obviously goes to Octavia, but seeing that you can have him building in less than 30 minutes of playing and can clear into the thousands of enemies levels in the steel path with a pretty okay setup, it's a no-brainer that I'd recommend to have him on every player's roster. Now this brings us to the final frame, and objectively the best Warframe in the entire game. Drum roll please. I present to you Revenant. Now, I know probably no one is surprised, as objectively Revenant is the best Warframe in the game, and if I only had 5 slots for frames, there's likely 0 chance I don't pick Revenant. When it comes to the idea of immortal frames, Revenant is always in that conversation, and for good reason. Mesmer Skin makes it so it redirects damage and stun enemies who attack you. No matter how high the damage number is, even if it's the highest possible number in the game, this skill will prevent that instance of damage. With that said, he does have quite a few other skills that make him a must pick, so let's check those out as well. His ultimate skill gives him the ability to do AoE damage that singles out the defense that the opponent have and make it more efficient versus that said defense. This means that this ability just does really good damage regardless of the target, and is a really good skill with really good AoE. To add to that, as you transition later into the game and a lot of the damage falls off and tougher enemies get much tougher, and this includes abnormally high levels that probably most players will never face off against, his Reef ability does health damage as a percent versus just doing raw damage, making it so that it scales regardless of how strong an enemy gets. Revenant is basically immortal with pretty strong AoE clear, and when all else fails, his damage continues to scale and remains useful literally through the entire game, no matter what enemy you face off against. If Revenant isn't the best frame, I don't know who is, but if you can think of one, let me know down in the comments and maybe we'll break them down in the next video. Now, how do we farm this godlike frame? And there's a few ways, but first you can do Mask of the Revenant quest, which requires you to have the rank of Observer with the quills. If you've been to see this on Earth, then you're going going to need to do the main story quest to catch up and do this quest. You can also do bounty quests on the Plains of Eidolon to get some of it drops, but it will take quite a bit in my opinion. Now if you want to do it the way I did it, I just farmed Revenant Prime from cracking open relics. It seemed like the easiest way to do it, and honestly it's probably much faster than the other two ways. He is by far the most difficult to farm on this list, but in the grand scheme of things a fairly easy frame to get, and considering his power is 100% worth the minor grind. Now these are the frames that I think most if not all players should have if you're jumping into Warframe. They each offer something unique and have quite a few different playstyles, and most importantly should be able to clear any content in the game should you need to. With that said, I want to thank you for watching. I'll be pumping out more Warframe videos on the channel, so if you want to stay up to date on all things Warframe, hit the subscribe button now. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Later.